What's up, everyone? My name is Kyle. In this video, I'll be narrating the step-by-step construction of this front deck, from the footers all the way to the last few details of trim. In this case, we're building a 10 by 15 deck, 10 feet out from the house and 15 feet wide. In this case, we're going to mark our footers 9 foot out from the house. This gives us 1 foot of overhang, or as we call it, cantilever, past our beam. I used some string line and curb pin to make sure my footers were an equal distance out from the house. Then I used more string line and curb pin from the house out to where my footers were to make sure everything was square using the 3-4-5 method. If you don't know what the 3-4-5 method is, there's tons of videos out there that'll help you figure that out. But it's a good way to keep everything square. Then in the middle of where my beam will be, I put a footer. Then about a foot in from the outside of the deck, I put another footer on each side. This left me with about 5 foot in between footers, well within code. Only had 3 footers to do on this one, so I didn't order a truck. I just mixed the bags myself. I used the Quikrete high strength concrete 80-pound bags from Lowe's. Frost line here in Delaware County, Pennsylvania is 36 inches deep. That's our frost line here. And our footers were 16 inches wide, so about 6 80-pound bags of concrete per hole. We didn't use sonotubes on this one either. Just used forms that I made out of scrap 2x4. Saved about $60. The 16-inch sonotubes are about $20 each. Before placing my J-bolts in the wet concrete, I used the string line and curb pins one last time to make sure everything's nice and straight. Here I'm just putting up my 2 outer joists. I'm going to do one in the center too. I'm just going to make sure everything is nice and level all the way across, and then I'm going to cut my post right to the underside of each of these joists. Top of my post is also going to be the top of my beam, and so once I notch out my post for my beam to sit in there, I'll know that everything is level all the way across. Here I'm marking the post for me to notch out so that my double 2x12 beam can fit in there, about 11 1/4 to 11 and sometimes 11 3/4 because this lumber is crazy anymore, but about 3 inches deep. And once we get this notch cut out, our 2x12 sit right in there nicely. 99.9% of decks in this region are framed with pressure-treated southern yellow pine. It shows up with different levels of saturation. It dries out the different thicknesses. It's just kind of difficult to work with. There are nicer options, but they come with a much bigger price tag, and most customers just don't go for it. Now look at that. That's right where our beam's going to sit. We put them on their cleats, and then with the help of my brother, we slide the first of this double 2x12 beam right in their seats. And this isn't the only way to find the beam height. You can do it a couple different ways. You can use your rotary laser if it's a more complicated deck. But for a smaller deck like this, the level works just fine. And then as Alex finishes up putting T-Co nails in the cleats, I do our post-to-beam connection with some through locks by Fasten Master. Use a combination of them and lag screws. We also use the 3-inch lag screws to sew the beam together every 2 feet. Our joists are already laid out 12 inches on center. We're installing Trex Enhanced decking, and I believe you can do 16 inches on center per their specs, but I feel a lot better with 12 inches on center. Once all of our joists are installed, we'll come back and put on our joist hangers and our flashing. At this point, these joists are not cut to size. They're all hanging out long past the beam. Once I get them all installed and secured to the beam, then I'll snap my chalk line at my desired depth, use my square to mark them, and cut them off flush. Once I cut all these pieces off, then we'll install our rim joist. We do a double rim joist on the end as well as the side, and just like with our beam, we sew it together with 3-inch lags every 2 feet. Blocking helps, but a double rim joist, in my opinion, makes a huge difference in securing your post. Another thing we always do is install another joist 4.5 inches in from our inside of our rim joist. This is the perfect space to snugly fit your 4x4 for your railing posts, and it's also the perfect space to use a 2x4 for your flat blocking, because in this case we're going to be picture framing this deck. But either way, installing that joist in there really helps keep everything tight. Now whenever we have flat blocking, whether it's for our breaker board or our picture frame or some sort of inlay or whatever we need to use flat blocking for, wherever it's appropriate, or anywhere we have 2 joists together sister, just like on our double rim joist. Anywhere we have that, we use tape. I see a lot of guys on Facebook comments and on blogs and forums about deck building. A lot of old school guys, they don't think that joist tape helps in preventing premature rot, but it absolutely does. Anywhere that you have flat blocking outside, you should use some sort of waterproofing tape. It's no different than windows or doors. Use waterproofing tape. It'll just help it run off and it won't get in between the joints. It won't sit on top and, rot it out quickly. Your joist will still dry out on the sides and bottom. It's not going to trap moisture in the wood. It can still dry out on the bottom. This should be common sense, but for whatever reason, this is a prevalent opinion and it drives me nuts. This deck is going to be skirted out with white sheets of PVC with a light gray lattice over top, and then shadow box with some PVC trim boards and some deck boards to kind of give it some depth. So to do that, we needed some nailers, and we used 2x4s behind the double rim joist with another 2x4 over top to pack it out so it all sits back about 1.5 inches from the fascia. And for the fascia, we use Royal brand PVC grain side out. And rather than butt the fascia against itself or put a 15-degree bevel on there so that the joints stay tighter, I decided to try something I saw online and router out the backside of a deck board so that the fascia can slide right behind it. I also used a table saw to notch the back of these so that I could heat them up and fold them. The plan is to heat them up, fold them, glue them together, and then use them on the corners rather than mitering my fascia. Here you can get a good look at the profile that I was looking for. That V cut in the middle is for it to fold, and those edges on the side is for the fascia to slide behind. I am fully aware that this is a wood-based composite, and there's a really good chance that after the freeze thaw, that corner there can split and crack. But either way, I thought it would look nice and I wanted to try it out. And this deck in particular is only right down the street from me, and it's for a friend. So if they do split, I can always come back and add new mitered corners on there. As I cut and installed my fascia, Tyler installed mid-span blocking to keep everything from twisting and moving. He also installed the joist hangers. And here I used a piece of wood tacked up under the rim joist so it could hold up one end of the fascia while I held up the other and nailed it on. See, I left that gap for that trim piece to fit on, and in a minute you'll see exactly what I meant. I also kept it a couple inches back from the corners so that the corners could fit on there and that lip could fit right over the front of the fascia. And even though our picture frame board is going to cover most of this anyway, I still waited until I put my fascia on to tape the top of it. That way I can cover the seam of the fascia too and no water can get trapped in there. Here I didn't leave myself enough of a gap, so I'd use my tapping block and just smack these over because they're not screwed in yet. They will be screwed in with PVC screws, but for now they're just tacked on with the brad nailer. I broke the fascia up and put the seam right here where the posts are just because I think it'll be more aesthetically pleasing. Then we went ahead and taped everything, and now it's time for the picture frame. So we'll go ahead and make our marks for our notches. The depth of your notching on your picture frame is going to differ from deck to deck. Sometimes you won't have fascia, sometimes you'll have different thicknesses of fascia, but in this case, we're using Trex, and we want a 1/2 inch overhang. So we have a 1/2 inch overhang, 1 inch of fascia, and then 3 inches of rim joist. So that gives us 4.5 inches, and these deck boards are 5.5 inches wide. So we're going to be notching approximately 1 inch out of the back. In the future, I will definitely not be tacking up that trim piece with a brad nailer. It looks terrible. I'll just use screws. I really regret it. I mean, there's no way to really fix that. You can maybe heat it up and tap it in with a ball peen hammer or something, but I'm not a fan. Here you get a good look at our mid-span blocking. Once you get your deck boards installed, you can go ahead and rip off the ends of your deck board. I suggest measuring this and triple checking and double checking your measurements a few times. I always find myself making little mistakes that could really be costly because these deck boards are not cheap. I like to put a 5 or 10 degree angle on that blade before I make my rip. That way there's nothing at the bottom of the deck board keeping your picture frame board pushed out. While I worked on the picture frame, Dave and Tyler were busy working on the steps and on the skirting. And even though I would love to show you how we did the steps, That's going to require its own video altogether. We'll make one for you next time, but for right now, there's no way we could squeeze a how to build steps video into this one. Another thing I like to do sometimes, if necessary, is put some shims underneath the picture frame board. You don't want those unfinished edges that die into this board to be sticking up above it at all. It's unsightly, and it looks a lot nicer if they sit just a hair below the breaker board or picture frame board. You don't want to make it a tripping hazard, but trust me, it'll look a lot nicer. At this point, Dave and Tyler are moving along with our railings. I didn't install any of the railings on this deck, so I wasn't able to catch any of that on film, but on the next one I definitely will, and I'll be able to give you a quick little rundown of how we do that. I will say that using chunks of 2x4 stood on their side are a great way to keep your space perfect from your top of decking to the bottom of your bottom rail. You're allowed no more than 4 inches, and 3.5 is perfect. This way you don't have to waste a bunch of time struggling with your tape measure and rail on a pencil, or using 2 people for one railing section. You do that, and almost every single time you end up with 36 inches at the top of your top rail, which is also what you need for code. Definitely double check with your tape measure and with your level to make sure everything's groovy, but in our experience, that's worked out pretty well. Now, our work on this deck isn't 100% complete. I still have to install the color matching plugs, wipe everything down, reinstall that piece of siding and the downspout, but for the sake of this video, it's done. Hope this video was helpful, and if not, hopefully you at least enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more videos like this or keep up to date with what we're working on, I'll keep uploading these videos every week or every other week. So go ahead and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.